Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about a brand new studio album from Fallujah entitled Empyrean. I have been in the midst of a rocky, turbulent, on and off relationship with Fallujah for just over a decade now. For everything they do that I love, that I appreciate, that I think is really ambitious and exciting, they've done something else that I think is just kind of boring. Kind of silly, kind of poorly executed, kind of clumsy. For instance, I really like the Harvest Wombs and Nomadic. They're really good, really tight technical death metal, performed with ferocity, performed with intelligence. I like some of the more progressive and atmospheric influences of Nomadic, and I like how those are expanded upon with The Flesh Prevails. However, the incredibly compressed sound mix of The Flesh Prevails completely ruins all momentum that it wants to have, that it tries to have. I will concede that back in the day I loved it, and I will also say that still today, musically speaking, there's an urgency and an emotional vulnerability to it that I find quite endearing, as these are two things that are often not found within the realms of modern tech death. But yeah, that sound mix, yikes, yeesh, yeah, big no for me. Then there's also Dreamless, which isn't just a great album, but I would argue maybe one of the best technical or progressive death metal albums of the 2010s. Gorgeous, out-of-this-world melodies and atmospheres and soundscapes contrasted with neck-snapping rhythms and grooves and some absolutely absurd guitar pyrotechnics. And then this exact same band just a few years later dropped Undying Light, an album as robust and rich and flavorful as a stack of soggy, unsalted crackers. Like, I'm pretty sure if you were to look up bland and underwhelming in the dictionary right now, you'd probably find an image of Fallujah's Undying Light. Long story short, you never really know what you're going to get from Fallujah because there's no real consistency in the quality of their output. I don't want to suggest that these guys are untalented because I don't think that that's the case, but they are, or at least have been, definitely unfocused. For these reasons, including the fact that there have been even more lineup changes, including another brand new singer in the form of Kyle Schaefer, I can't really say that I was super crazy pumped for Empyrean. So much so that I was almost going to skip this album entirely in favor of something else. That something else originally being Parkway Drive. Lucky for Fallujah, I was bored shitless by that new Parkway Drive album, so here we are with Fallujah again. Also lucky for Fallujah, once I actually sat down and listened to Empyrean, I was pleasantly surprised. Everything I liked about records like The Harvest Wombs, Nomadic, Dreamless, even The Flesh Prevails, warts and all, is intact here. It has been brought together in something that feels more cohesive, something that feels more unison, and something that feels, dare I say, more focused. It may not be the sharpest or cleanest tool in the tech dev shed at this point, but Empyrean is more than capable of doing whatever job you throw at it. Opening track Bitter Taste of Clarity, for instance, is a very intense and immediate cut. It has the urgency and the drive and even the genty grooves of a Meshuggah track, but with a death metal coat of paint. There are lots of jagged riffs and rhythms here, lots of pummeling beats, lots of virtuosic guitar noodling. There are even some little blackened spices to be found throughout the track that almost harken to, like, what we heard from Fallujah on some of the more extreme moments of Nomadic. Then there's Radiant Ascension, which throws towering, spiraling riffs at you left and right, almost weirdly reminding me of, like, Deathless or Great Is Our Sin era Revocation. There's also a massive chorus and some really great clean vocals throughout the track that give this a heavenly, otherworldly kind of feel and vibe, similar to that of a track like The Void Alone from Dreamless. Meanwhile, tracks like Into the Eventide and Celestial Resonance are a little bit more slow-paced and appropriately melodramatic. Like, they build a lot of tension and a lot of atmosphere on top of, like, a lot of chugging guitar patterns before then embellishing in the kind of, like, tech death madness and cinematic metal that I think you would expect from a band like Fallujah. And then closing out the record, you have Artifacts, a very emotive and powerful, if perhaps long-winded display of modern tech death fury and power. There are some melodic metalcore and deathcore-ish style grooves and passages that I personally don't care for too much, but you know, they do add a little bit of edge to this. They do add a little bit of attitude, and they're pretty brief. They don't get in the way of anything, so whatever, no biggie. Really, I'd say the biggest issue is I'm just not really seeing that same level of ambition that I did see from something like Dreamless, or even from something like The Flesh Prevails. Even at its best, and even at its most wild and experimental, this album ultimately does feel a little bit one-dimensional. It does enough within that one dimension to keep you satisfied, but really only if you already love Fallujah and if you already love modern tech death and progressive death metal. If you don't care about any of these things, I highly doubt you would give even two singular fucking shits about Empyrean. I think overall I would give this a 3.5 out of 5, maybe leaning more so towards an enthusiastic 3 out of 5. It's well produced. I enjoyed it. I'm probably not going to return to this too often, but if it comes on, I will probably continue to enjoy it. Kyle Schaefer does a pretty good job on vocals. I mean, it's your standard kind of modern death metal vocal performance. But, you know, who knows? Maybe if he's actually allowed to stick around unlike the last guy, he'll be given more room to blossom and explore and grow as an artist. I admire the determination of Andrew Bard and Scott Carstairs. They've dealt with a lot since forming Fallujah, a lot of lineup changes, a lot of sounds and styles and phases. Some of it has worked, some of it hasn't. I really appreciate what these guys are doing. By no means the roaring, rampaging return that I think some people might be wanting from Fallujah right now, but, you know, ultimately still a pretty solid slice of technical and progressive death metal. 3.5 out of 5, once again leaning towards a 3 out of 5. It's good. Yeah, fuck it. Check it out. Why not? You got nothing better to do. If you did, you wouldn't be here. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.